Just one of the tenets of yoga, of teaching of yoga, is to be empty and to not want things and to be free of possessions. And yet yoga industry last year grossed, I think, between 27 to and $30 billion or something like that. This piece of paper, believe it or not, is a paint sample from a paint store. For some reason they have quite large sheets, and this is the paint color you would select to paint something, to paint your walls white. And it was very convenient because it's actually quite a good quality paper, nice texture. And I'm just going to take advantage of this free opportunity to draw with free sample. And as I draw it, we can reflect on creating value for free of charge. So already here we have free sample, paper sample, pretty much almost free pencil. It's an old pencil that I found in somewhere, and I have my phone used for other purposes, white glove that was included in the IKEA set. It was included with the lamp, and the lamp had these clear glass components that had to be handled with cloth gloves, and the IKEA store includes these gloves to handle these glass elements. So now I have pretty much free white glove. My mouth is free. I can talk whenever I want. I can record it, and it's just adding value to my life and maybe hopefully someone else's life. Out of pretty much budget elements, and the value is a kind of thing that we agree on. It, especially in art, it's sort of random. We decide, the viewer decides what's the price for a piece of art, what the value of it is. Even though the materials used for a piece of art are very cheap or free, even found materials. So you can actually, out of found materials, you can create revenue. Out of zero, you can create millions. That's another sort of thing that I struggle with, which is finding that one section in your day where you can be uninterrupted. And I know that I'm lucky. I know that many people don't have the luxury of finding time and space for themselves. In many lives, the situation is set up in a way that it just prevents people from having their own time, because there are kids always wanting something, spouses, elders, and there are a lot of responsibilities. And sometimes some people's lives are so set up that there's like zero, not even a tiny moment for a self-reflection or some kind of activity that's not productive, like this one. I mean, what productive means is relative. if I grew up in a household where my parents wanted me to be someone very practical, like a lawyer or doctor, then this would be considered useless. My parents would be worried. Like, this drawing thing leads nowhere. I mean, it's kind of funny that people don't see value in things as they are, but as soon as there's an evidence in value in a form of some kind of currency, monetary reward, and suddenly even the most ridiculous occupations become justified. One example is a video gamer. So you can be a video gamer that just likes playing video games so much that they spend time at the screen in the basement all day. They don't have time for bathroom breaks or for lunch or food, and they play with such passion that nothing else matters to them, and then people around them could worry, like, where's your life? You should get your life back, and you should do something with your life. But then as soon as they tell them, oh, actually no, because I'm a gamer, but I'm testing video games on YouTube and in social media, and I have a huge following and I make millions of dollars from it because I have advertisers and I have the creators of the games themselves sending me games for free to test them, and then they pay me. So then now, if I prove to my overbearing parents that I'm a gamer that makes millions of dollars, which is more than they make being lawyers or doctors, and they can leave me alone finally. So that's another downside. I am going to complain about the way our world is set up, the capitalist system, where the money becomes the goal in itself and the value that is pretty much recognized universally. Whatever you do is worthless until it can earn you a lot of money, then everybody leaves you alone. You can be a hobby horse champion and nobody will call it silly when you show them your pay stub, your paycheck. So, oh, okay, you make $500,000 a year, good for you, keep going. Whereas if you don't make any money, even decently reasonable occupations become a subject of ridicule. Oh, you're a designer, web designer, haha. A web designer who can't even make $40,000 a year. That's ridiculous. And even though you put a lot of work in it, no one appreciates it because the measure is your paycheck. A lot of very valuable work is being done with no pay or with very low pay, and it's underappreciated. First, it's not appreciated, and the underappreciation is expressed in how little people get paid for these jobs. And the little pay for this job is also a sign of underappreciation of these jobs. So like people make fun of garbage collectors and janitors, and these are some of the most important jobs in the world. They actually keep the world intact. Like if there's a garbage collectors strike, it's miserable. People drowning in stinky garbage suddenly. It's like, yeah, it's nice, everybody wants to be a manager, but if there is no one left to take out the trash, then we're in trouble. So we have to make sure that these occupations get enough respect by fair pay, but also the fair pay is a reflection of how we appreciate these jobs. It's a kind of a double-fold issue. And it's kind of interesting because one and the same thing, like this drawing and talking here, can be considered useless and extremely useful, just depending on how many views and how many likes and how much revenue it can bring. Like if I tell someone I draw stuff with pencil while talking to the camera, it will be like kind of a confusing moment. But then if I tell them, it actually makes me quite a lot of money, then suddenly it spikes the interest. And the measure of what makes money is also random. It's like, it's sort of like if you can't make any money doing what you're doing, then you're considered a loser. It's sort of like, are you a good, how is your hustling skill? It's sort of living in a world where everybody sells something is exhausting. Every corner you turn, it's like someone is trying to push a product, service, or something on you. They want money from you. You want money from them. But, where's the value? You have money, but where's the value? These shapes kind of look like tongues. I was tempted to draw something more specific, like give myself a challenge, like draw a monster or something. But I realized that if I drew something that requires more focus and something that I need to really direct my mind to work on, then I think the talking part would be gone. Because talking takes away half of my focus from my drawing. And if my drawing is very specific, I can lose enough focus to form sentences, which is probably okay. The only other thing I could do is just draw that monster or creature silently. Just devote the whole focus to draw that thing, and then just do the voice it over, put the voice on top of that, record the voice separately. But in this case also, I think the focus required for the certain amount of ranting would be compromised. I feel like I need a little bit taken away from my focus that I devote to talking, and also from my focus devoted to drawing. So like it's a little bit of a 50-50 split of focus. Another, if you are an artist and if you struggle with materials, with acquiring materials, another thing you could try, and this is not really for art that you could call archival or lasting, but just for practicing, you can inquire about these sort of paper samples that are quite stiff, and you can also paint on them. And some paint stores also have free samples of paint, so they're quite nice sizable jars. small jars, but you can grab at least primary colors, maybe some complementary color like orange, bright orange and purple, green, or whatever work of art you work on. You can kind of customize your colors and pick the colors you need and just use these samples, paint sample jars that are free to make work of art on a free piece of paint sample like this one. And that's another cool way to minimize the cost, especially for training art, because a lot of art is training. Sometimes I'm not able to tell apart training from actual art, because sometimes what is intended as training becomes actually good, and I use it as my primary artwork, which is fine. But it's always nice to approach your creative endeavor with the mindset of, oh, it's just training, because that kind of takes away a lot of the pressure that you feel about making this one piece a masterpiece that has to be framed and hang in the gallery, prestigious gallery. If it's a training, then you can use cheap materials. Sometimes it helps to overcome the fear of blank surface with just like smudging it, like even stepping on it with your shoe and like creating a little dirt mark on it, and then you can kind of start from this level of like having a piece of paper that's not terrifyingly blank. I will just remove that blob here. I don't need it. So I'm still in Netherlands and kind of learning how to be here, and kind of it's in some ways it's very nice and very easy. The street life is just outside, you go out and there it is. Whereas in the States, sometimes street life is kind of hard to come by. People are kind of huddled in their apartments watching TV. And sometimes it's just terrifyingly empty when you go out for a walk in the States and everybody's driving cars. And here it's like, bikes and pedestrians. And one thing that bugs me about this place here is that people have zero concept of respecting other people's time to sleep, to rest. And when someone is walking down the street at 3 in the morning and he's in good mood, and people are like a group of people or 2 people, they just talk out loud, very loudly, as if they were the only people in the world. And then like it's pretty obvious that they know that they wake up a bunch of people trying to sleep. But like the lack of respect for other people's sleep is something that always has been my kind of pet peeve, because depriving people of sleep is as rude as depriving people of food or other basic human rights. There's nope, you can't sleep now because I decided to be loud for no good reason. And then you won't get any good rest, and it affects your health. It affects everything. Good sleep is very important. But I don't know why people are oblivious to this kind of obvious courtesy of letting other people rest. Right. My first piece of review about this paper is that although it looks quite nice and it has nice texture, the graphite doesn't really stick to it in a way that I would like. It sort of doesn't let me create marks that are darker and more saturated. So it could be good for like practice purposes, like I said before, but I think there's a good reason why art supplies are good for art, and supplies from other sources not always work great with art making. But yeah, for practice, and maybe this sort of paper would be nice for painting. Like I could put some gesso on it and then paint on it. There's a lot of great ways of making art on a very cheap or free materials. But you know, the risk is that they won't hold. They will fall apart after a while because they're not archival materials. Especially house paint will not last long. It will be subject to bleaching from the sunlight, because most things are photosensitive, which is kind of a cool thing, because when you think about it, you can put a negative film on a, I don't know, whatever surface you can think of, and just expose it to life for weeks, months, years, and then have a positive photograph developed on something very unlikely, like a cork board. I recently saw a nice print on a cork board because it was like a bulletin board that had these little newspaper clippings on it and small little paper cutout materials and push pins, and then at some point it was decommissioned and the materials were taken down, and the corkboard was basically exposed. There was this, darker rectangles, and the difference between dark and bright was quite striking, to the point where the bleached areas could be really great for just basically using some kind of stencil or negative and shining light on the board. And I also like the cyanotype. The cyanotype liquid is photosensitive, but it's not very sensitive in the way that other photographic gels are. Cyanotype has to be exposed for maybe hours before it gets dark and exposed. But that's why it's used for like objects and leaves and feathers. But I recently experimented with making cyanotype negatives, the same way a camera would make them. So I made a little box camera with lens, and I put cyanotype paper in the camera. And we are back. It was a little challenging to reset the frame, but I don't even know where we were. Just start again. No memory. So I don't know if that white growth actually helps, because it has this texture that actually still picks up the focus. I don't think there is a manual focus in the phone lens. So it is pretty quiet now. to address this part here. Yeah, it's a little challenging paper. I wonder if I press, how dark can it get? Not too dark. Alright, so let me complain a little bit about health. I'm generally healthy. I have good test results. The doctor says I'm healthy, but I also have these weird moments when I don't feel very healthy. I have like kind of fatigue, heartburn, sinus pain, and like general feeling of sickness. And I've been trying to figure out what causes it. And I've been tinkering with my diet, and I just tried to work it out by elimination of some foods. So I eliminated anything alcoholic. I don't think that eating acidic food makes any difference. And also gluten. I've been experimenting with gluten because whenever I ate something baked with flour, I would have weird symptoms. It almost felt like allergy, like kind of like heaviness and brain fog. If there are any doctors watching, maybe you can tell me what that is. I was looking up the diabetic symptoms, but my blood work was okay. It doesn't indicate pre-diabetes because the symptoms were sort of similar to what pre-diabetic people experience. But no, that's not it. Could be anxiety, but because anxiety can make you feel sick, even though it's really pretty specific kind of feeling of sickness, even though I'm having trouble explaining the symptoms when I really think about it. Sometimes it's a headache. I do have a migraine sometimes, but it's like connection between like acid reflux, intestines, and sinuses. It's all connected. I don't treat it as three separate things. It's one and the same issue, but what is it caused by? I have no idea. The tests show nothing. I go to the doctor and I get laughed out of the office. Okay, why do you bother me when you are perfectly healthy? I don't know, because I feel like crap and I can function. I mean, most of the time I'm fine, but there's some unexplained element of human health that we can't solve. A lot of people feel fatigue. Chronic fatigue is a thing that cannot be easily examined medically, and often people feel like they're not being listened to when they say that I can't function. I'm so fatigued that I'm just unable to get out of bed. But there's really nothing physically wrong with them. And some of it is mental. And sometimes to battle the fatigue, a vigorous physical activity is prescribed. And I actually do feel better when I train, when I exercise outside, especially when I jog, do little jumps and climbing. it just really helps. It helps the blood flow, it helps the sinus flow, and the endorphins do their thing. Basically, I get high on exercise, and it can be addictive too. Being exercise junkie is actually quite generally healthy, but it can turn unhealthy if we do too much, if there's no moderation. Moderation in everything, even water. If you drink too much water, you can die. So like I've had some stomach issues because I drank too much coffee. Now I'm down to like 1 cup a day. And it just helps. It's fine. You can drink optimal amount of coffee every day without issues. But if you drink just too much, you get problems. Maybe on this side. I have to address this side a little bit. I don't know if you can hear it. There's some kind of bird squeaking out there. The birds in Netherlands are quite prominent. There's a lot of trees, a lot of birds, and there are all sorts of birds. Even the invasive birds. There's parakeets, populations of parakeets, because the climate is slightly warmer. They can actually survive the winter here, and there's a lot of very colorful parrots flying around Amsterdam and other Netherlands countrysides and smaller towns. I have not been to many Dutch cities. I've been to Dordrecht, I've been to Rotterdam, Amsterdam obviously, and now I stay in Leiden. So Leiden is sort of very nice, cozy city, or like a big town. In terms of comparison, I would kind of compare it to Boston in relation to New York. So kind of like New York would be Amsterdam and Leiden would be Boston. Maybe not the same size ratio, but it's sort of, I compare it because I lived in Boston for a long time and I was thinking about moving to New York, but it was just too large for me. It was just really overwhelming. So I never really made it in New York, like all the artists would like to. But the kind of thing where the artists were sort of pressured to just settle in this hub of creativity that was, at some point it was Paris, sometimes it was Berlin, New York. And because it was so centralized, there was no internet, no communication was slower, and commuting was slower. So there had to be this like center of creativity and culture, like Paris or New York. And now it's a little bit different. It's decentralized. You can make great art out of a little hamlet, a little village somewhere nobody heard about, because everything is sort of open in terms of communication and commuting. Commuting is also easier, so you can put out your content online and people will come to you, and they can come to you to see you in person even. If you create enough of a presence on the internet. So it really changed. It would be kind of interesting to see how all the iconic artists would adapt to these changes. Like Warhol is a good example of adapting, because Warhol really was all about the novelty and adapting to new techniques, new technologies, the idea of mass production, of of popular culture in art, and I think now he would really embrace all of these things that we complain so much about, like even AI. I bet Warhol would be all over it, and he would find some really cool, creative way to exploit those new tools. But we will never know how, because we're not Warhol. We don't have his imagination. And internet, I bet internet would be really, Warhol would probably be the top influencer. It becomes a little bit less about what art really is supposed to be or what it is, but about attention. And Warhol understood that. He just kind of delved outside of the idea of what makes art art. Like many people are really panicking when they see a piece that is not quite matching the definition of art in their mind. And even the question, is it art? It's really important to them. It has to be very important to them that what they see resembles art and corresponds with the definition of art. It's like, for me, it's really not an issue. Like if I see something weird, like, I don't know, a performance piece or some kind of statement that doesn't involve any sort of art supplies to make, even if I don't feel like calling it art, it's still an interesting statement. And why do I have to be such a stickler for defining things? Maybe it's not a sculpture, maybe it's not a painting, maybe it's not a play, not a movie, but it's something. It's something someone created, made happen, or maybe it made itself happen. Is rainbow art? It's the way we experience things, and we experience rainbow and mountains and the ocean. We inject all these beautiful views and occurrences with our own artistic, creative sensibility, and it doesn't really matter if they were whether they were created or not by a human. And sometimes things were not created by a human. Like a good example would be the patterns left by a boring wood beetle under the bark. They are spectacular drawings in many cases. Many artists would be envious about them. But the beetle, the insect itself, will never peel the bark out to see what they've created. They only, the creation came only from craving for sugar. And I always joke that the difference between a wood beetle and an artist is none, because wood beetle makes its pattern in the surface of the wood because they crave sugar, right? Because of sugar craving, and so do the artists. So the artists crave sugar, and they eat out the goodies, the juicy wood pulp. So like, what motivates us? And sometimes art, like especially what I'm doing here, is sort of reminiscent of this kind of focus where I'm just eating away piece by piece. I'm kind of zooming in and I don't really look at the whole situation. I don't really zoom out as much to admire the whole thing. I don't pull the bark off right away. I just keep going and I keep ranting and talking, and then in the end we just face the blobs, and it's always blobs, but they're always different. And this time the challenge is that the paper doesn't really let me achieve quite a dark value. but there's still something. Something is still emerging. Maybe this side can be brighter. I will always end up with the right side, especially bottom right, being less involved, because it's always, for technical reasons, it's always the end of the drawing, because I start here and I don't want to smudge things. So then I end up here and I'm done. So it's like, there's really no shame in leaving some areas blank. In fact, many drawings are actually more interesting when they address certain parts and then they have this large shape, or like pretty much untouched territory here, and it just actually is a part of the composition too, which also makes a great excuse to stop earlier and not overwork yourself. But there are also different ways of leaving the mark. Like, you know, I kind of follow one direction, but there's also kind of a technique where you kind of create these spidery almost lines, kind of half curved, and it creates this more textured look. It's also kind of uncomfortable because we don't really have proper furniture yet, and the chair I'm sitting on is too low, and kind of my lower back starts hurting. So it is sort of going to be another travel version of the experiment, and it's going to be blobs again. So if I ever decide to do something more specific, I might need to go easier on talking, to just really focus on what I'm doing, and then maybe do a voiceover, or just do a silent one with some nice music. It's a slow TV experience. Maybe a couple of commercial breaks, extra loud ones. How would you like that? Yeah, I sometimes would see a person I follow on YouTube advertise a product on their channel, and one time I actually fell for it, and I really respected this one runner that produces this great content about running advice and athleticism and all that stuff. And he advertised a backpack once. He was showing how he's using this backpack all the time and how it's useful and how it's so solid and it never breaks and has all these features. And then I bought this backpack because it sounded like really legitimate, but it's not the best backpack. And then I never saw him with this backpack again. And the backpack is okay. It's sort of glitchy, like the strap kind of slides off. So like one strap becomes longer after a while, and I have to readjust it because it's too slippery, and it sort of loses its grip. And it's just, it's a good backpack. It fits a laptop in it, so that matters. It's good for traveling. But I wouldn't really use it for athletic stuff. I wouldn't use it for running. It's just like a regular cloth backpack. So I felt betrayed by the person that inspired me to run. And I thought it was all truth, and that was so naive. But people, they get calls from sponsors and they get asked, can you show off this backpack to your viewers? And if it's just decent looking backpack, you might actually feel like you might be able to use it, and you actually use it for a while, and then you advertise it on your channel, and then you realize, oh, the strap is sliding off, maybe it's not the best backpack, and then you actually caused many people to buy that backpack, but everybody else had the same problem, and then they get upset with the company and with the content creator. So it is like, I always come back to this, the system we live in, the money talks, how money will explain all the questions you might have about life. When you see something ridiculous or out of ordinary or just plain stupid, just look at where the money comes from, who gets paid for some things, and the money trail, basically. Follow the money trail and you'll see why this silly thing is actually perpetuated. Oh, it's because, if it doesn't, someone loses money, or if it is, then someone makes money, and it's very important to them. So then the things like, Amazon sending you a bottle opener in a giant box that could fit a fridge. And like, why would that be a thing? And there has to be some sort of money answer to it. I don't know what it is, but there has to be some reason that makes them do that. And it's just, it's weird. This whole money thing is so weird. Like, it's like a middleman. You have this, it's not even physical anymore. You have some kind of impulses on your bank account that can be reflected in your card, on your chip, and then you match that chip with the computer, and it tells you whether your chip has enough impulses to buy life, basically, to survive, to live. Can you survive? And then if you don't, you have to somehow get more impulses on this chip through many means, and sometimes those means are just questionable. And it's kind of nice when money is just like a side effect of the good things you do, but most of the time it's the money is the goal, the ultimate goal for everything, and the means are whatever goes, whatever is legal, or it may be even illegal sometimes. And I was thinking about even things that were anti-consumerist in their nature, like yoga. Yoga was developed by ascetic holy men 5,000 years ago, and one of the main principles of yoga is to be as minimal as it gets, and to be free from wanting and from grasping things, from greed. And it's just one of the tenets of yoga, of teaching of yoga, is to be empty and to not want things, and to be free of possessions. And yet yoga industry last year grossed, I think, between 27 to and $30 billion or something like that. I will correct myself if I said it wrong, but that's like, it's totally opposite of what it was supposed to be. It's like, you can do yoga on bare floor, on grass. If you do yoga, try it on grass. Grass, I think, is the best surface for yoga. It's very grippy and soft, and you can pretty much do all the poses on grass. So if you don't have, like, you can do yoga without clothes. That's basically how the the first yoga teachers and students did yoga. Just maybe they had some cloth to cover themselves and just do yoga on bare ground, on clay or grass. And now we have like, oh, you can't do yoga without this, EVA foam, specially formulated for absorbing or not absorbing sweat, and odor resistant microfiber yoga pants that cost $400. All sorts of, I don't even know, like what are the products associated with a discipline that was meant to be about nothing. Like it's just the pinnacle of irony. It's like, what are we doing? Where are we with this? Like everything becomes a way to make a buck. Even things that were meant in very opposite terms, to be the opposite of what we made them be. Now I'm chasing a little dust particle here, and it might be interesting. Yeah, okay, I blew it off. I see some figures emerging here. Maybe it's the old yoga masters being upset. They will be so upset when they saw what we've done with all that. The same goes for other meditation tools. Like it became this tool for rat race, basically. You can actually win the rat race by opting out of it and becoming a meditation guru, and like going to these meditation retreats for CEOs, and if you don't want it, then it comes to you, right? So like you have to be free from want, and then everything will be successful after that. If you want it too much, then you will struggle and it will never come to you. So you have to use mindfulness to first forget about the rat race in order to win it. Isn't that ironic? Buy my microfiber meditation mat. It's only $99.99 plus tax. What else can we sell? We can sell pretty much everything. Minimalism is for sale too. The minimalists, the kind of most famous minimalists, are the couple of guys who used to be salesmen. And I said used to be kind of liberally because I think they still have it. They still are salesmen, because their journey of preaching anti-consumerism turned into commodity, into a packaged product, basically. So they made a movie, they wrote books. I think they even sell some items. I don't quite remember exactly, but they travel from town to town, and they they have little meet and greets and events and talks, and I think it's very expensive to actually book their event somewhere if you wanted to, and also the tickets can range from I think $61 to $450 if you want to meet them and hug them and talk to them. And it's of course, I know there's no other way. If you do something you're passionate about, you have to support yourself, you have to survive, and sometimes it comes naturally. It's because your message resonates, you get a lot of following, and you can write books, you can sell books, a movie, and it's all great. It's a good message. But it is still part of the same irony of wasn't it supposed to be about having less. So, people on YouTube, there's a lot of popularity with channels of like, I quit my job at 53 and now I'm free to do my thing, and I live in the woods and I poop in the hole in the ground, and and like, yeah, but you have 1 million followers and subscriptions and sponsors, monetization, because you have YouTube channel about it. It's very popular. It's like, oh, good for you. You're so courageous. But like, I dare you to do this without the camera following you, without the YouTube account. Just do this raw, without any support network. It's totally different. It just feels more like a desperate survival situation. And then see if you can, talk about it in such a way that kind of makes you feel like a winner, like you're an excited person, ready to share your experience with others. Compare a person who says, I quit my job at 53, I live off the grid in a cabin, or maybe in a shed, I poop in the hole in the ground. So that thing said by someone who has large following on YouTube, versus the same thing said about a person who did actually lose their job and was forced to live in this sort of situation. It's like two different worlds. So they kind of, the YouTube, I kind of joke that we're living in YouTube economy, because a lot of people are YouTubers and they actually broadcast their successes and failures, and actually turn their failures into successes, because nothing boosts clicks as much as Schadenfreude and people craving someone else's failure. Like, oh, that's not just me, other people fail too. But that failure gets turned into success really quick, because it becomes a story that people can follow. And you have charisma and you're eloquent, then you get nothing to worry about. You can poop in a hole in the woods and it's going to be glorious. I kind of like this. It's kind of looks like some kind of noodle or gnocchi. Makes me hungry. Actually, I ate quite a lot of food just now. I ordered a Thai food. Some Thai food, stir fry with chicken curry, quite spicy, and rice. And I'm very full. This looks like a food. Interesting. I drew a foot. Maybe that's the food that's in my mouth. Yeah, there's still like some vertical lines here and maybe some shapes that many people would associate with some not so family friendly shapes, but that's the nature of drawing nature. Kind of tree bark. You can see all sorts of things in patterns like tree bark and frosty glass, mud, noodles, and soup, noodle soup. That's not quite nature, but the way the natural geometry works is kind of usually not very Euclidean in terms of geometry. It's sort of fractal. there are some, like, you know, angular shapes in nature, like squares, rectangles. Sometimes when accident happens, like the trees in the forest fall in a certain way that creates like a triangle or a rectangle, but most of the time it's just blobs and folds like that. Even humans are devoid of right angles and sharp corners. We're all blobby. All our internal organs are blobby and kind of fractally rather than angular. Teeth are kind of. I mean, although if you look at the teeth closer, you will also find that teeth are also not that rectangular. Actually, quite weird, especially when you pull them out and have this double kind of root. And yeah, so we have some spherical elements in our body, like eyeballs, that are quite geometrically perfect, I would say, but it's also it's the result of the function, because the eyes had to be spherical in order for them to move around the socket. So in some way the eye is like a ball bearing, like the same design. Ball bearings are eye socket, and also our joints, like rotator cuff in our shoulder kind of works similarly to an eyeball in our eye socket. So yeah, I really always enjoyed the bionic ideas for designing functional objects with nature in mind. You know, helicopter being inspired by dragonflies, or the maple tree seeds falling to the ground. What else? There's a lot of examples. I mean, the sails and the airplane wings are pretty much inspired by the wings in nature. Insects and bats and birds. And, you know, submarines were inspired by fish and whales. There was a department in our college that kind of let students play with this idea of. It was a design department that I was not part of, and one of my best friends was actually part of that department, and he became a very successful designer actually in Poland, and he was creating these functional objects inspired by nature, like boxes, very interesting boxes that opened in a very interesting way, and just inspired by the way seeds and flowers open up. So he would just kind of look at nature and get inspired by how nature works. There actually is an organism that has evolved a wheel mechanism. Kind of, it looks a little bit like there's a wheel, bony kind of structure of a wheel in a, like, kind of pivoting on the, or maybe it was the like gear. I think it was one of those microorganisms that has this rotating tail. I forgot what it was called. I can look it up. Yeah, if there is a way, there's a function to evolve, then nature could actually imitate some of the inventions that humans came up with in terms of motion and mechanics, kinetic mechanics of things like gears and shafts. So nature is a great teacher. And it gives me some hope that humans are actually starting to understand the importance of nature, not just to enrich them, but just to preserve it and to keep inspiring us. The way nature does things is, I mean, I wouldn't say flawless, because there's a lot of mess with how nature does things, a lot of death and misery and decay and stink, but you know, the way life is being supported is very simple, very elegant. Basically, all you need is some water. Water dilutes things, and also in water, things develop faster, like the nitrate, the nitrogen compounds that are created in water are being generated by waste, but fish waste or insect waste or even decaying plant matter, and that's being fed to the plants, to roots, to algae, and algae are neutralizing those nitrates, making the water pure. So like the best way to purify water is just to put a bunch of plants in the water. You can even experiment it with it by yourself. Just grab a really muddy, swampy jar out of a swamp somewhere. It has to be like really stinky, like you should be able to smell ammonia from it, or sulfur, like really smelly kind of swamp water. Put it in a container and then buy some plants, either aquatic plants. You can buy floating plants from a fish store, or you can buy plants that like a lot of moisture, like pothos, and just immerse their roots in that water, and just observe how over time these plants will turn this muddy mess, stinky swamp, into crystal clear water. It will happen in the matter of days. So then once the plants run out of water, they run out of the nutrients, the nitrates, they will die because there's nothing to eat for them. So what you need is some kind of organism. They can be microorganisms. You need beneficial bacteria. So basically what happens is beneficial bacteria in the water is what's called nitrifying bacteria. So what it does is it eats up the ammonia, nitrite, all these nasty poisons that kill fish, and it turns it into nitrate, which is a little bit safer compound. Like fish can survive in some nitrate, and the nitrate in turn is being processed by plants, and the plants just turn it into nothing. Basically, with photosynthesis they create oxygen. If there's some CO2, the plants will also like it, and they will just purify the water. There'll be no more nitrates. But the key is to have some kind of organism in the water to keep producing those nutrients for the plants. So like if you want even your cut plants, your roses or carnations to last longer, you can add some kind of nutrients to your water, and they might even sprout roots. It's kind of a very cool experiment. Just you can kind of take a clipping out of a plant, in someone's garden, like a leaf, and put it in water that's rich in nutrients, like even if you have an aquarium, and then watch roots growing out of it, and then you can plant it yourself and have another big plant. So nature is just, there's no limit to what it can do. Nature keeps perpetuating itself with just sunlight, some poopy water, and oxygen, CO2, phosphorus, and yeah, it's self-sustaining, and we are starting to sort of see it. And I think some of the countries, some cities are actually implementing that system. Like Singapore is a good example. They understand ecosystems and they create them embedded within the city life, and it makes people healthier. It makes the heat less unbearable, the air cleaner, and also it helps the natural environment itself. You know, the species of animals return and have a good life there. And the key is to have, because nature can be annoying. Like, if you create a pond in your town, people will start complaining, oh, there are mosquitoes everywhere now, and they bring disease. So like, what do? All you need is some birds and bats to eat the larvae, to eat the mosquitoes, and fish. Fish will eat mosquito larvae. So it's not enough to just create a pond and just put some random trees in the ground. You need to think about creating a food chain, the ecosystem that will sustain itself. Which is basically, it will kind of reset everything to balance, where not one species of something will dominate, like mosquitoes. You just need enough of each species to play part in this balance. So mosquitoes will be eaten by birds and bats, then they won't be bothering humans anymore. And luckily, I don't know how humans feel about birds, but luckily I think most of the time humans are okay with birds. Sometimes birds are noisy and they poop everywhere. But I think if you create a piece of nature for them, they will stay in that nice environment. The way the nature and humans intersect now is kind of troubling. Like, people are complaining about, what's this bird doing in the city? Or there's a deer in my town. Like, how did he get here? Like, how do you think? You build your dwellings on its territory. It's not that it came to you. It's always been here. You encroach on his territory or her territory. And so the answer is no, it's not them. They're not invading your space, you invaded theirs. So like, it's all backwards. So yeah, and then animals are just scavenging, eat out of the trash cans, raccoons and skunks and opossums, even foxes now. And it's not very healthy for them. Feeding birds with bread is very detrimental to the bird's health. It's like, if you know enough, you wouldn't feed ducks with bread. They have their own things to eat. They eat some plants, and they eat insects, and they eat fish. They also catch small, like crustaceans and fish and anything. Not sure about crustaceans, but you know, they wouldn't eat wheat. Think of them as gluten-free animals. They don't, like, the stomach don't handle croissants and donuts very well. So like we're not helping them. But you know, the more we know, the better things get, and that's why education is underappreciated. It has to be emphasized a lot more. People need to know these basic things. You know, like we don't teach children the connections between things. We teach children about things, about elements of nature. You know, this is a duck, this is a rabbit, this is a tree, this is a berry, and this is a flower. But like, we don't teach them how the bird connects to the bunny and how the duck connects to the berry, and you know, it's all connected. The grass you're sitting on has insects in it. The insects are eaten by birds. The birds are caught by foxes and coyotes and cats, wild cats. Domestic cats are also wreaking havoc in natural environments. But it's all part of the same tapestry, and we just forget to show kids that. And it's just like, you know, it's all separate. This is the grass. This is an insect. This is a bird, and this is a fox, and this is like, no, but also show them the connections between those things. All right, and with that, I think we have another episode. I'm not sure if I will combine it in one or split it in two. Before and after I was interrupted. But I think this paper was a little bit more frustrating. It didn't give me enough control. I feel like it just was, arguing with me a lot. He didn't want to do things I wanted it to, the paper. And it like created these weird spots here. Yeah, all right, so I'll leave it here. And thank you for sticking with me for that long. See you next time.